Hey everyone, today I thought I would do a continuation of how to support your husband during this time of no contact. You have to understand that he is looking for acceptance. That's what he's been looking for his whole life. He's a codependent. He's an abuse victim as well. And when you have parents that are narcissists, the child is never first. It's always the parent's needs, never about the child's needs. The child's opinions and decisions is not valid to that parent. Only the parent's opinions and decisions are valid in that family, even when that child is an adult. They are looking for love and approval because they haven't gotten it. What they've gotten was the love that the narcissist has for themselves. They never get the approval and acceptance and love that little child is searching for their whole life. And that is why, even when their son or daughter is an adult, they are still looking for that. That's why, because they didn't get it as children. The narcissist was very self-involved. She only cared about her needs. Yes, she took care of her kids, but when you boil it down to the nitty-gritty of the situation, anything that she helped her children with was only helping her. She didn't do things out of kindness and love for her children, even though she thinks she did. But really what it was her being selfish in a situation, trying to brag on her child, trying to get something back in return from her child. Whoa, that door slammed. Sorry. Scared me. That was strange. The door opened by itself and slammed. The codependent is in denial about the situation, okay? You're not in denial because you didn't grow up in a narcissistic home. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but more likely you didn't. And that's why you're like, you've been abused just like the codependent, your spouse. The spouse is in denial about the mother or father's actions, right? When your spouse, the spouse, bring it up to your husband or wife about this is not appropriate behavior. They should not be treating me like this. They should not be sticking their nose in my marriage. They should not be putting their opinions and decisions into my marriage. This is my marriage. We are no longer children. Well, your spouse, the husband or father who has the narcissistic parents, will be in denial about it. And they're in denial because the way that they have treated your relationship is no different to your spouse the way they have been treated their whole life. So your spouse does not see anything wrong with what they are doing in your relationship, specifically about your marriage or maybe your children. So because your spouse has grown up in this narcissistic family cult his whole life, he has been programmed into thinking that the behavior from the narcissist is acceptable. It's normal. And he or she has been trained never to question that narcissist. And they have been trained since childhood, since they were born. And so what happens is when you get with your spouse, or maybe could even be your boyfriend or girlfriend, and their parent, the narcissistic parent, comes in and behaves the way that the son is or the daughter is used to, that child doesn't see anything wrong with it. And they stay quiet and they let it happen. All while the girl, the spouse, and this could be girlfriend or boyfriend, I'm just going to say spouse, all while the spouse is sitting back in awe. They're like, I can't believe this person is doing this. This is my relationship. And then eventually what happens is long enough in this relationship with this continuing to happen, the person that this is your mother or father-in-law, even you start to stay quiet. And then you accept it. Even though you know you're really not accepting it, you're just going along with what your spouse is doing because you don't want to upset that person. You don't want to bring attention to the way that this narcissist acts towards you and towards their child and towards that relationship as a whole. And that's eventually why people go no contact, because they have been, they've cooperated in this situation for long enough to the point that this is just like too much. And people start blowing up at each other. People start saying nasty things to each other, maybe even physically get in a fight with their mother or father-in-law. But they're definitely getting a verbal one. Which, by the way, yeah, you should stand up for yourself. But you have to do it in a respectable way. Because if not, if you go being verbally abusive to the person that's been abusive to you, what happens is, and granted, they deserve it because you probably stayed quiet long enough, or they've crossed boundaries that you're like, whoa. But what happens is the narcissist turns around and tells people that you're the evil one, that you're the abusive one. Because if they've treated you like this so far in this relationship and you've obviously noticed it, see, what you don't know is they've already smeared you to other family members, to other friends of theirs. That way, when this blow up does happen, because they're expecting it, it's really evil the way they think. They're expecting this blow up to eventually happen. So once it does, they can go back and tell everyone, see, it wasn't me. I told you, look at the way she acts. Look at her attitude. See, everyone, I told you. So you have to do it in an elegant way. You have to be eloquent. The way that you approach these people when you're confronting them and when you're standing up for yourself. You can't go shouting and hollering and everything because you're feeding right into the frenzy exactly what they want you to do. That's why they're doing this, is to get you upset and to get you, over here acting in a certain way that you normally don't act, so they can go back and tell people. See, I told you so. So you have to approach the situation in a very mature fashion. So if they're doing stuff that is crossing boundaries or saying nasty things about you, you go up to them with maturity and tell them this is not acceptable. And if they try to say something back, you say, I don't care how you feel. I'm sorry you feel that way. But this is my life and you cannot do this. Because the thing is your husband doesn't know. Also, your husband doesn't know how to be independent. That's really one of the main problems here, is that your husband doesn't know how to be independent, separate theirself, because they're enmeshed, separate theirself from the abuser. They don't know how because they are enmeshed with this person. They have been treated like this their whole life. And see, I'm talking from a scapegoat point of view. I can't really say on a golden child's point of view, but I've heard stories where the golden child, no matter what is said and done, never sticks up for that situation. And it's usually, the divorce usually happens in the golden child's family. Like the golden child's wife and him. Usually the divorce happens because, see, the scapegoat gets to a point where they do get enough. They do have enough. They weren't treated like the golden child. So they've been, taken advantage of and abused their whole life. And when you become an adult, you do eventually get tired of it. And they're usually the ones that stand up first to the narcissist. They're, because the golden child and the scapegoat child has two different experiences in that family. Even when the scapegoat child goes and tells the golden child what has been going on, the golden child will never believe it. They'll never believe what the scapegoat is telling them. And that's why the golden child always gets onto the narcissist side instead of sticking up for what's right, because he or she goes along with what the narcissist says. And they'll always be against the scapegoated child because of the two different experiences. And I feel like your husband also is always looking for an apology from the narcissist. They're looking for the narcissist to take ownership of the way they have treated that relationship, their child's and their wife's relationship. They're looking for they're looking for them to take responsibility for their actions, but the problem is they never do. And I think this is what keeps their child holding on to this relationship, because that child, all they ever want is an apology. All they want is their parents to take responsibility and apologize for the mistreatment. But they'll never get it, because remember, the narcissist is righteous. They are very selfish people. They will never admit to their wrongdoing. Instead, what they do is they shove everything under the rug until literally you have a mountain sitting in your living room of the BS that they have done. And they never take the responsibility of the way they've acted. What I was going to say is they never take that crap from under the rug and put it in their face, in your face, and say, I did this, I'm sorry. They never do that. And that's what keeps the child hanging on in that enmeshment relationship, in that codependent relationship. Because deep down inside, that child wants their parent. They want their parent to apologize and take responsibility, because it would mean the world to that child. It would change that whole dynamic of that relationship if they could get the respect, and they could get the apology, and they could get the empathy and the sympathy from that parent. And it's like this: people that buy lottery tickets, they're scratching those lottery tickets thinking one day they're gonna win the big prize. But after a while, they've spent all their resources looking for that big prize and still haven't got it. In that analogy I'm using, that child is looking for acceptance and apology and the parent to take responsibility and accountability of their actions, but they never get it. So through life, they're sitting there scratching that lottery ticket, looking, hoping, praying. And just think, if you were to win big on the lottery, think of how excited you are when you do win that big prize. So I want you to think how that child would feel if they got that apology or acceptance, that reassurance, empathy, sympathy from that parent. How it would change his whole life, just like if you won the lottery, right? It would change them forever. And that's what keeps them holding on. That's what keeps them coming back. Is they're hoping one day they will get that, but it never comes. Let me see. I have some notes. Sorry. And so, well, let me just move on. Okay. I'll just move on and go off my head. Anyways, so what happens in your relationship when the wife or husband decides that no longer I'm going to tolerate this narcissist, the spouse with the narcissistic parent, two things will happen. One, they agree and they go along with it. Or two, they're in straight denial and they will never accept what you're saying about their parents, and they will call you names for saying that about their parents. They might even call you a little crybaby. You're just a little crybaby. You're too sensitive. Get over yourself. That's what more likely the golden child will say to their spouse. My husband's a scapegoat, so he's agreed with me this whole time. He's never gotten any reassurance or empathy or accountability or apologies from his parents ever, and it or approval. So it always comes a time in someone's life where they're like, well, I've waited long enough. You're still acting like this. Matter of fact, my in-laws, when my husband did tell them, like, you guys said you were going to change and you never stopped. You didn't change. You never stopped treating my relationship like this, Natalie like this. You know what they said? We're too old to change. We will never change. That's what they said to him. When all he was hoping for was them to say, you know what? We made a mistake. We acted foolish. And more than likely, they would come apologize, and then the person that they offended would also apologize for the way they've acted too. But see, that never happens. And so when the spouse finally comes to the end of her ropes with this, and you're going no contact, and then the husband agrees to it, well, there's two things. He can agree to it and you go no contact and he doesn't, or you both agree to it and he either goes no contact or very, very low contact, only contact if there's a death in the family. And so what will happen with your husband is he is going to be extremely depressed, extremely, because everything I just talked about, he's never got, and now he's at, he never got the acceptance or apologies or blah, 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 everything I just talked about. So he's going to be moping around thinking, why didn't I get this? Why am I treated so differently than the golden child? Why am I treated so differently? Or I don't want to say different. Why am I treated this way in my life? When can I be an adult? And so they mope around thinking, maybe I should give them another chance, because this time, I know it in my heart, they'll change. And they don't. They never will. Aging narcissists is an ugly sight. They get worse with time. They don't get better. They get more entitled and more selfish. And so you're going to have to be supportive as the spouse to your husband, or to if vice versa. You need to be supportive to this person, because they could be really hardcore sad for a few months, even a year. But with time, wounds heal and things get better. But when you make that choice to go no contact, you have to stand your ground and say, I don't care what you say. These people will never come back in my life. They won't change. They have never proved it. And so your spouse, for a few months, will constantly ask you to give them a second chance. And you need to stand your ground and make that decision. And the only way to stop this abuse and their behavior is by going no contact. Because if you open that door a little bit and have low contact, it might be hard to control that low contact because narcissists cross boundaries. And so you have this low contact, but that narcissist is every day pushing that door a little bit open, a little bit more, until it's open again, and you're right back in the situation you just got out of, right? And so when your husband or wife or whatever is moping around saying, please, I know they said they're going to change, they didn't change, but just give them one more chance. I guarantee it. I guarantee, now that we've cut the cord for right now, I guarantee things will be different in our relationship if we allow them back in. They see we're serious. I guarantee my parents have changed. They will never, now that we've stand our ground, they will never treat us like this again. That's not true. It happened to me. You know how many times these people have cut my husband out of their life because of me, and then they weasel their way back in with his mom crying about how much they miss him? Then they come back in our life and they do the same garbage that they were doing before, trying to pin my husband and I against each other, whispering in my husband's ears at the time we're not married, to break up with me, saying once again, and this is the hurtful one, he was going to lose his whole family if he didn't cut out this nonsense of wanting to be with me. The nonsense. Maybe it wasn't that exact words, but that's basically what they were saying. You're going to lose me, your dad, your brother, your cousins. If you stay with Natalie, we'll no longer be in contact with you. They did it so many times. And you know how hurtful that is? That when somebody gets discarded by a narcissist, and especially the whole narcissistic family cult, and that cult comes back and they're,